What if I told you that Barcelona's next big star wasn't supposed to make it? That while others were climbing the ladder inside the walls of La Masia, he was grinding it out in the 3rd division of Spanish football. And yet, he still rose. From the lowest ranks of Spain to the biggest club in world football, this is the story of the unconventional star rewriting the rules at FC Barcelona. This is the rise of Fermin Lopez.
Fermín López! Oh! Absolutely magnificent!
لكن شوف الأجواء شوف الأجواء شوف الأجواء يا أن تكون
Fermin Lopez, not just today but since he's come in, but particularly today, was absolutely tremendous. He was everywhere. He looked a constant threat, always breaking into the box, always looking to get on the end of stuff. Obviously scored an unbelievable goal.
In a small town called El Campillo, far from the bright lights of Barcelona, a skinny kid named Fermin Lopez was chasing a dream. No, not Martin Luther King's dream, his own dream of becoming a professional footballer. Fermin didn't follow the typical path. He wasn't hyped, he wasn't handed anything, nobody really knew about him. He spent hours playing on dusty fields with his local club, dreaming of one day wearing the famous Barcelona jersey. While many kids at La Masia follow a clear path to the top, Fermin's journey was anything but ordinary. This wasn't your typical story like Lamine Yamal where a player rises straight through from La Masia to the very top. Initially, he spent some time at Recreativo de Huelva before moving to Real Betis in 2012. He wouldn't move to Barca's child labor factory until 2016. Just when Fermin Lopez thought he was on the verge of breaking into professional football, everything fell apart. He had climbed the ranks at La Masia, getting better year after year, and the dream, it felt close. Essentially just one good season away. But instead of a promotion, he was handed a reality check.
Podía demostrar lo que él tenía en la cabeza y Fermín no lo pasa bien. Toca fondo también a nivel mental.
Barcelona sent him away.
¿Cómo es salir del Barça?
Me jodí porque era mi sueño. Yo no había visto otra cosa que no era el Barça.
Loaned out to Linares Deportivo, a tiny club buried in Spain's 3rd division, Fermin went from training on nice pitches with top prospects to playing on muddy fields with local plumbers in front of a few hundred fans. Like, I genuinely think Bonnie Blue has been with more men than the number of people who watch Linares games. The physical battles were brutal, the tempo relentless, and the conditions were far from what he was used to. Basically, imagine the way Getafe plays in La Liga, then imagine there's no ref to stop them. That's the physicality of the 3rd division of Spain. As expected, he struggled to adapt. His touch was off, his mind clouded. He was playing like Vinny after he tweeted that he'll do it 10 times more. Vinny, my brother, 10 times 0, it's still 0. The belief he once carried with him began to fade. It makes sense. When you're struggling in the 3rd division of Spain, it makes you question whether you could ever make it to the top. But the lowest point was still yet to come. In a crucial match against Cordoba, with scouts watching and everything on the line, Fermin completely collapsed. We're talking about a disaster of a performance. Every pass was off, every decision wrong. Everyone around him agreed it was the worst game of his career.
Hizo un partido desastroso.
Lo pasé mal porque estaba como muy decepcionado por el partido que hice.
In that moment, he felt like it was over. His dream of making it at Barcelona, gone, buried in the mud of Linares. Imagine that feeling as a youngster, to have your dream broken before it had even really begun. He had hit rock bottom, from being so close to becoming a first-team player for the biggest club in the world, to now someone who could barely string together passes against farmers. And that's when his coaches stepped in, not with criticism but with compassion. They told him to forget the pressure, to stop chasing perfection, and to just play the game he once loved. Play with joy, play freely. People really underestimate just how important confidence is for athletes. In fact, for all humans. Confidence is the reason that Ferran Torres went from a player who looked like he'd never played professional football before to the next coming of David Villa. It's how Mbappe went from not knowing what offsides are and missing penalties back to scoring goals. After speaking with his coaches, something clicked for Fermin. He no longer had fear. His confidence was coming back, and he began to thrive. He played with courage. He attacked space, he shot from distance, he made the clever runs that made him so great. Slowly but surely, he was becoming Linares' most dangerous player. By the end of the season, he had scored 12 goals and assisted 4 more. Not only had he found his form, he had found himself again. This is the Fermin that everybody wanted to see. The attacking midfielder that could take control of games. This was the real version of him. It had just been hiding in the shadows. It wasn't the road he expected, but it was the one that changed everything. Fermin's efforts didn't go unnoticed. There was now buzz around his name in the Spanish football community. The skinny kid who was tearing apart teams the way Lizzo tears apart a Big Mac. As a result, in the summer of 2023, Barca invited him to join the first team for their preseason tour in the United States. For most players, preseason is just about fitness. Maybe finding some baddies in the USA, trying out some fast food places, you know, that kind of thing. But for Fermin, it was everything. A final audition, a chance to prove he belonged. Pretty much a once-in-a-life opportunity. The exact moment he had been waiting for back when he was younger, before he was sent out to the middle of nowhere playing in the 3rd division of Spain. And in that preseason came El Clásico. Now, even though it was technically just a friendly, a match between Barca and Real Madrid always means more. These guys could have been playing a game with no cameras, in a bubble somewhere, and there would still be pride on the line. The stage was massive, the stadium filled with fat Americans, and of course the classic bandwagoning Hispanics. It was electric, and the stakes were high, especially for a kid trying to claw his way back into the club's plans. Because obviously the teams are trying to win, but for them, it's preseason. The managers are just trying to test out their tactics. The established players are just trying to get their fitness up while avoiding injuries. But for Fermin, this might be the last opportunity he ever gets to play for Barcelona. Fermin didn't just survive the pressure, he thrived in it. He scored a thunderous goal from outside the box.
Fermín Lopez! Oh! Absolutely magnificent! Fermín Lopez. Oh, he won't forget that moment in a hurry.
And says, you know what? This is my moment. I don't know if I'll get on the field in La Liga play. I don't know if I'm going to play El Clásico in La Liga. But I'm going to play El Clásico today.
Then set up another with a slick assist. An incredible performance. The fans were stunned. Xavi couldn't believe what he was seeing. And the headlines the next day all asked the same question. Who is this kid? The performance wasn't just a highlight, it was a lifeline. It completely flipped the script. Suddenly, he wasn't the kid that Barca sent away anymore. He was the kid that they couldn't afford to lose. Because as we will see later in the video, Fermin Lopez is not like your typical La Masia graduate. Anyways, after that game, Xavi confirmed that Fermin would stay with the senior side for the 2023-2024 season. It's another moment where Barca fans have to thank Xavi. It was really his decision that allowed Fermin to stay. It was Xavi who gave him the opportunity to shine in preseason. Between Yamal, Cubarsí, Fermin Lopez, Xavi really laid the foundation for Flick to build on. I always have to remind people that because Xavi still gets disrespected. The investment that Xavi made in Fermin Lopez started to pay dividends just a month later. On August 27th, he made his official La Liga debut against Villarreal. He nearly scored again, showing that his preseason heroics were no fluke. He showed that he belonged, and that was proven even further when he got his first competitive goal for the club against Mallorca, a strike that rescued a crucial point. That's right, it wasn't some stat pad session when Barca were already ahead. It was a crucial goal that got Barca a point at a moment where it seemed like they lost all three. Then later in the year, he scored on his first ever Champions League start in a 2-1 win over Shakhtar, a performance that earned him man of the match. Once again, performing in a relatively big game. There's not many players that can come in on their first ever Champions League start and immediately contribute to a goal. It was obvious that this kid was made for the big occasions. He wasn't afraid of the bright lights. The door to Barcelona had already been slammed in his face once before, but thanks to that unforgettable night against Madrid, Fermin kicked it wide open. The summer of 2024 was a pivotal moment in Fermin Lopez's career because it was a moment when he transformed from a promising talent into a national hero. Fresh off becoming a European champion, Fermin was selected for the under-23 squad to compete for Spain in the Olympics. This time though, he wasn't just along for the ride, he was there to lead. He wasn't like Mendy on the French national team when they won the World Cup. In the group stages, he was already pulling the strings, gliding past defenders, creating chances, and setting the rhythm for Spain's midfield. It was clear that he was levels above everyone else on the pitch, which makes sense. When a player is good enough to start for Barcelona at times, it means he's going to be way better than most of the guys at the Olympics. And when the stakes got higher, Fermin shifted into another gear. I told you guys, the bigger the stage, the better this kid performs. In the quarterfinals against Japan, with tension in the air and all eyes on every single touch from the Spaniards, Fermin delivered a masterclass. 2 goals. One, a curling rocket from outside the box. Once again, qualities that you rarely see from La Masia graduates. They're taught at a young age to keep the ball, play simple passes, keep possession. This kid, when he's in range, shoots the ball as hard as he can and goes inshallah. How he played against Japan wasn't just a performance, it was a statement. It was supposed to be a reminder that this guy, he has another gear that he can shift into. Fermin had cut the Japanese open like sushi. I had another analogy in mind, but I didn't want to get demonetized. The semifinals against Morocco tested Spain like never before. They went down early after a penalty, and the dream of a gold medal looked to be slipping. But not on Fermin's watch. He took control, calmly slotting in the equalizer, before threading a sublime pass to assist the winner. 1 goal, 1 assist, 1 leader, dragging his country to the final. He was by far and away the best player on the Spain national team. Anyone that watched the Olympics will tell you. It's funny because even though Fermin himself is young, against these other guys, it looked like men playing with boys. And then came the biggest game, the gold medal match in Paris, under the lights of the Parc des Princes, against the hosts, the croissant lovers, the guys who always need a fresh baguette, the mustache wearing, chapeau on their head French, led by the man himself, Thierry Henry. Fermin Lopez versus the croissant lovers. The stadium was rocking. France actually struck first, but then Fermin flipped the script. He scored not once but twice, stunning the home crowd and giving Spain a commanding 3-1 lead before halftime. I keep having to repeat myself, but once again, another big moment, and Fermin Lopez's fingerprints were all over it. Even when France clawed their way back and pushed the game into extra time, it wasn't enough. The match ended 5-3. Spain were champions, and the hero of the tournament, Fermin Lopez. By the end of the tournament, he had 6 goals to his name, 2 of them coming in the final, and he was the second highest scorer in the tournament overall. But more importantly, he was the player of the tournament, the engine, the spark, the heartbeat of Spain's entire team. It was a phenomenal performance, because at Barça he looked good, but at the Olympics he showed that they had something special on their hands. Like I said, he had shown glimpses of it in the 2024 season at Barça. He had shown that he can score goals, that he can be a modern day attacking midfielder. The Olympic run only further proved this point. La Masia is known for producing midfielders with sharp passing and perfect positioning. Now, I'm not saying Fermin Lopez doesn't have those qualities, but he's a very different profile than the typical midfielders that come out of Barca's child labor factory. He's more aggressive, loves to shoot from distance, and never stops running. Seriously, this guy has the same motor and tenacity that Gavi has. In fact, he plays so intensely that out of nowhere he can get red cards. I've seen this kid get a red card in the 3rd division of Spain and also one with the first team. Even Hansi Flick knows that sometimes things like this happen when you have a player who plays with this level of intensity.
And I'm happy with them. I'm happy with the intensity they have, and it could happen today. You know, I think the pitch was wet and he's sliding in the opponent, and normally he don't want to do this, but it happened, so we have to accept it.
Forget the next Xavi, Iniesta, Pedri, Fabregas, whoever you want to name who was a central midfielder who came out of La Masia. Fermin Lopez, he doesn't play like any of them. In fact, the midfielder that I think he's the closest to is Kevin De Bruyne. Again, before some of the weirdos come in the comments, I'm not saying Fermin Lopez is as good as Kevin De Bruyne. I'm saying he's a similar type of profile. That prototypical attacking midfielder who wants to shoot from distance, who wants to be direct, go forward. We have not seen a profile like this at Barca, let alone a player that came from the academy. They gave Fermin a new contract until 2029 with a 500 million euros release clause, further proof of how much the club believes in him. And it was good to see, because I was a little bit worried when Barca signed Olmo. Not that Olmo isn't talented, but spending that much money on a guy who was injury prone was a little concerning. But the second concerning point was that Olmo played in the exact same position as Fermin. So in many ways, it felt like Olmo's presence could hinder the development that Fermin was making. This is a guy who had scored for fun in Xavi's last season, and yet showed at the Olympics that with a little bit more freedom and responsibility, he can put up even better numbers. Well, Hansi Flick realized that, and he made sure to put Fermin in a position where he can be at his best. It also helps that Olmo naturally misses large chunks of the season because of injury issues. As I stated before, what Fermin Lopez does is he brings something fresh to the team, something that doesn't follow the usual script. It's very rare to see Barca players be that fast, that direct, that aggressive, especially the central midfielders. Sure, you'll get wingers like Yamal, like Messi, but number one, these guys are generational players. You can't just compare every player to them. The other thing is, these guys are not Barcelona central midfielders. La Masia produces guys like Xavi, Iniesta, Fabregas, Thiago Alcantara, these tempo dictating midfielders who focus on possession and getting out of tight spaces. Now, Fermin Lopez is great technically on the ball, not at the level of those guys or even a player like Pedri, but what he lacks from being that nimble guy in tight spaces, he makes up with the fact that he's so direct and aggressive. He's someone that can decide outcomes and write his name into big moments. moments, and he's everything that Flick is looking for in his attacking midfielder in that 4-2-3-1 setup. Perfect example is when Barcelona faced Bayern Munich in the Champions League. Very few people expected Barca to win at all. Remember, this was early in the season, and people were still questioning just how good Flick's side really was. So not only was the win surprising, and the fact that they slapped them 4-1, but what was even more surprising was just how much of an impact Fermin Lopez had on that win. He carved through the Bavarian midfield like he was a veteran, like he's a player that has been playing for Barca for over a decade. He provided 2 pinpoint assists in what ended up being a spanking. Obviously, all the talk at that time was about Rafinha. After all, he was the hat-trick hero. But Fermin Lopez had done something crazy in that match. He didn't just survive on the pitch in a big Champions League night against one of the biggest clubs in the world. He actually owned the pitch. It was the kind of performance that really shifts careers. The kind of performance that gets people talking about you on social media. In a positive way. You don't want to be like Onana and start trending because you don't have hands as a goalie. That performance made people stop and say, who is this kid? You really need PR these days. Look at this post from ESPN FC. Slanderous to compare actual star boys to Garnacho, but that's what Fermin Lopez needed. He needed more hype around his name, more people to talk about him. By the way, that post that I just showed you guys, United lost that game. But ESPN FC posted it in a way that made it look like Garnacho either scored the winner or he scored a hat-trick. Brother, comparing that guy to Yamal and Desiree Doué, it's like comparing a Toyota to a Lamborghini. Then came the masterclass against Valencia. 2 goals and 2 assists. He was untouchable. Everything he touched turned into danger. A perfectly timed late run into the box, his specialty. A curling finish there, another one of his specialties. A disguised pass through 2 defenders. The full Fermin Lopez packet, pause, in one game. Those direct runs in behind, the ability to score goals, the ability to shoot from distance. This is a very unique profile of player. At least at Barca, but even in world football. Besides guys like Florian Wirtz and Kevin De Bruyne, how many attacking midfielders are there like that in world football? It wasn't just one of Fermin's best individual performances, it was one of Barcelona's best performances as a team all season. I felt pretty bad for Valencia. They got bent over and spanked by Barcelona multiple times throughout the year, and he did it all while still being in his early 20s. La Masia kids are so young that a 21-year-old kid seems like Unk. While Flick has used Fermin in a hybrid role, sometimes in the number 10 role, sometimes on the wing, it's clear that he's at his best as an attacking midfielder. That's where he was playing when he got another assist against Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League. It's where he's at his best. Barca's own mini Kevin De Bruyne. His market value has soared, and now there's actual buzz around his name, which is quite impressive when you think about it. Barca is a team that's stacked with talent right now. It's hard to be spoken about at all when you have Yamal taking on the world stage, Rafinha playing at a Ballon d'Or level, Lewandowski still scoring for fun at 37 years old, Pau Cubarsí anchoring a Hansi Flick back line at 18 years old. So the fact that Fermin Lopez has still been good enough to get some talk, despite the fact that there's so many other mega stars around him, it's an indication of just how good he is. He is one of Europe's most elite young talents. If he was playing for any other club, there would be way more discussion about him. But because he's been a rotational piece at Barca, the buzz and hype is a little bit less. Like, I'm pretty sure if he started for Manchester United, the Premier League people would think they're looking at witchcraft. Barca fans already knew it, and even Fermin Lopez knew it deep down. This wasn't a flash in the pan. The Spaniard is showing that he's here to stay. From a small town to 3rd division football, and now to the bright lights of Barcelona, Fermin Lopez's story is all about grit, growth, and going against the grain. He's living proof that there's no single way to become great. He's also proof that development isn't always linear. Your meteoric rise isn't always going to be straight up. There's going to be bumps in the road. And he's also showing that you don't have to play a typical way to be a great Barcelona midfielder. You don't have to be the next Xavi, the next Busquets. You can have your own unique style and still make an impact. For Barca, Fermin Lopez might be their next big star, and he's rewriting what it means to be La Masia made. Now, as great as he's been, the best player out of La Masia is of course Lamine Yamal. To see just how good the teenager has been, you have to check out this video right here.